Two tree species dominate the metro landscape. The ailanthus, also called the tree of heaven, and the Douglas fir tree. The Douglas fir ranks high as a regional hero in our timber industry, and so it's celebrated as Oregon's state tree. The ailanthus, on the other hand, is currently denigrated as a weed, a horticultural villain for its aggressive suckering and its foul smell. Dr. Catherine McNewer, my mentor and a professor of environmental history, is researching the complex history of the ailanthus. However hated and scorned, its story is still important.
I began thinking about what trees would never qualify for the heritage tree list, what trees are the villains of the city that no one wants to see. I started to think about the ailanthus tree, which is seen nowadays as a weed tree or as invasive, but it wasn't always that way.
In the early 19th century, European and American horticulturalists intentionally imported the ailanthus from China, and they distributed it widely throughout American cities. It was Andrew Jackson Downing, the famous urban landscape architect of the 19th century, who once celebrated this tree for its ability to vigorously grow anywhere in an urban landscape. Later in his life, he came to regret popularizing this tree.
He begins his article with "down with the ailanthus," and it confuses people. People are, like horticulturists who knew that he supported the ailanthus before are like, wait, we thought that you liked the ailanthus, you were recommending it. He finds the smell distasteful, and he finds this other thing that he finds distasteful is the fact that it suckers on its own. The fact that it is resilient and doesn't need to be cultivated by humans, that it takes off on its own. And the thing with the ailanthus tree is if you try to cut it down, it goes into emergency mode and all these suckers come out and you have to keep at it or apply incredibly strong herbicides to kill it. And then later on in the article he writes, "But we confess openly that our crowning objection to the petted Chinaman or Tartar who has played us so falsely is a patriotic objection. It is that he has drawn away our attention from our own more noble Native American trees to waste it on this miserable pigtail of an Indian man."
Using racist ideology and nationalism, Downing humanized the traits of the ailanthus in a dangerous way. Terms like native and invasive are especially problematic when we conflate a plant with an entire nation or a cultural group.
So it's not exactly the same arguments made by those who want to protect native species today, but it's an early native plant movement that's happening in the 1850s, where he's saying plant American trees, and he's using a lot of ethnic bigotry that is distasteful to modern ears, but with the same ultimate end goal that the native plant movement has today, which is prefer native plants over exotic plants. I don't think we'll ever be rid of the ailanthus. Historians will show you, if you look back at the record, no government, even when they have been doggedly persistent in trying to get rid of the tree, has successfully gotten rid of this tree. This tree will take off on its own and will prove to be a thorn in the side of anyone who's trying to get rid of it.
Is the ailanthus an invader? Or is it an ecological opportunist? This story exposes some cautionary tales in how we think about nature, in how we think about ourselves, and our elusive quest for control over the natural world. I've always found my tree stories by walking neighborhoods and looking one step at a time. I've mostly shared my stories by leading interpretive walks. But new technologies are changing the way we tell stories, and the way we find trees. Dr. McNewer and her colleague, Dr. Vivek Shandis, a professor of urban studies, have been collaborating on an ambitious project to capture the stories of nearly every tree in the city. In 2014, Dr. Shandis and his team used lasers and artificial intelligence to count and measure 13.1 million trees in the metro area. Obtaining the heights and locations of each tree, Vivek's LiDAR images afford us a perspective of the city like we've never seen before. Connecting this precise data to an online map, now anyone can locate one of these trees and upload their own story about it.
We can look at this Richmond neighborhood and we can look and see which tree in this neighborhood is the tallest. And if I winnow it down, there's the one tallest tree in this neighborhood, and it looks like it is 143 feet tall. It's on private property. It's an evergreen, and it's got I can go to Google Maps and actually see it now from where it actually exists. And so we can go around and actually see. So if I go here, it looks like it is actually the tallest in that area. And it looks like it's on Loyola Jesuit Center's site. And that's a very handsome grove of trees right there. Wow.
Yeah, and so telling the stories of these trees then is really important because that allows us to maybe rally a community around a tree that they don't want to see go down, and add value to that tree that might be threatened.
If we could have gone back in history, we could actually unpack what and how and who actually put that tree in that place or allowed that tree to grow. The kind of stories that we tell about these trees, which is really unique. If you go to a forest, there might be one or two trees you can tell stories about. Our hunch is that in an urban forest, we would probably be able to, if we looked hard enough, find a story about every single tree in the city. The utility of the human element is essential in this work. Robots can only do so much, as we all well know, and so part of the human side of the technology is just trying to kind of pull out from the data what really matters.
Humans need to tell the stories about these trees. We can convey the history that has happened around these trees through these stories, and you can't get that from the LiDAR data, but you can get that from Portlanders.
So from ground truthing, really what we're talking about is making sure what we're looking at on a screen is actually what it looks like on the ground.
Coming in at 252 feet, Vivek's LiDAR images identified this as the tallest tree in the city of Portland. Located along Balch Creek in Lower Maclay Park, the tree is one of many giants that somehow escaped the woodsman's axe. We asked Brian French and Ben Trapanese, two expert climbers who have scaled the state's largest trees, to climb this tree and measure it against Vivek's LiDAR data.
Firing. Seen anything yet? Might have enough to manipulate it there.
That feels so solid.
Our admiration for the tallest, most colorful, or aesthetically pleasing says a lot more about human desire than about the trees themselves. It begs the question of why humans value certain species over others. Because trees don't keep a ranking of their heights or their country of origin. We do. Why do we humanize trees with monikers like native, invasive, tallest, shortest, hero, and villain? As Brian and Ben discovered, the top of the tree snapped out a few years ago. But as far as we know, at 248 feet, it's still the tallest tree in all of Portland.
What's up, man?
Not bad, right?
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
There could be taller trees hiding in the city, but Ben, Brian, and Vivek's lasers haven't found them yet. So what's so special about this tree? Well, if you're keeping score, its height is what makes it stand out from the thousands of other Douglas firs that surround it. But as we've learned, there's much more to a tree than its numbers. It's our stories, our connection to it, that have made this tree, or any other for that matter, a hero.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, what was that? Is that an owl or a dog?
That's an owl.
Technology is great, don't get me wrong. But we have to remember to keep our heads and our hearts in both worlds, the natural and the digital. With websites, social media, lasers, and robots, there's an old saying that still rings true. We have to see the forest for the trees.